Thanks for hanging out long enough after lunch. I hope you guys are still with us here. I don't know about you, but it's been really technically deep, right? A lot of this stuff has been super deep, and I like it, but I'm going to bring something now that's a little bit higher up the stack, a little bit softer, a little bit easier to consume after the heavy lunch. All right, we're going to meet the new kid in the sandbox. Yesterday I saw that there was a short lightning talk already about this, so they kind of lifted it up already and told you about getting into the CNCF Sandbox. But we're going to look at integrating a visualization with Prometheus with a brand new project, basically. It's been around a little while, but it's fairly new. And the first question you always have when you look at this stuff is why? Why are we doing this in any case at all, right? The really interesting part when they started this, they had a very clear vision in their README all the time that this was a candidate project for the CNCF, because there's absolutely no Ollie visualization project inside the CNCF. And of course, they've just broken down the barrier and jumped from the Linux Foundation over to the CNCF. The second thing is, and the reason we're here, this was targeting specifically Prometheus from day one. You're going to recognize a lot of the stuff in here is absolutely targeting metrics from day one. You also saw yesterday that traces have been added in the first form, but it's definitely a metrics visualization tool from day one and focused fully on Prometheus. So anybody that's using Prometheus for storage of their telemetry data has the ability now to visualize it using Perses. Too many P's in all these things. The other thing, it's a fully open source project, which is really nice because that gives us a choice. And I've been around in open source a long time, and the more projects there are, the better, in my opinion, in that as you see, the best one wins, right? People will just not gather around. They won't come to projects that are just not solving the problems or are not innovating fast enough or are not giving you what you need. That also has a lot to do with the culture, and it's nice to see the change in the governance going on around Prometheus. It's nice to see at Perses how it's easy to contribute, right? That people are very welcome to contributions. So the culture remains very important in that stuff. I thought it'd be fun to look back and some of the stuff I dug up when I was originally looking at this to think about helping out. It's not that old, it started in 2021, but they had a very clear idea how they wanted to approach this. And they said, okay, we want to have an open dashboard standard, meaning a certain format inside of the JSON, making this very parsable, right? So you immediately see the GitOps and terms like dashboard as a code, being able to automate this across your infrastructure. And you're going to see some examples of what he talked about a little bit yesterday in the lightning talk, but they are massive adopters of that. Thousands of dashboards are automated across their infrastructure. Being able to embed your visualizations inside of any kind of user interface, so not just the whole dashboard, but then bits and pieces can also be embedded. You'll see a few examples of that later. And definitely targeting Kubernetes native, so that means custom resources, being able to leverage things like what he announced yesterday, that they have data source service discovery. So they're using both the Kubernetes service discovery and the HTTP service discovery. The best part is providing the validation for your dashboards. That means they have a tool that gives you API access into this to be able to validate whether you're doing it right before you deploy the stuff. Really great for all your CI/CD pipelines. And it also involves migrating from, say, a Grafana dashboard into the Perses standard. The support plugins is another thing that allows people to extend the capabilities. So these are the 5 things that they put out there and said, hey, this is what we want to do. It's been very clear from the beginning and very obvious where they've been working towards. I thought it was worth slowing down on this. I don't know how many applications you've seen to the CNCF Sandbox tier of CNCF, but this was extremely quick. All right? I've been a CNCF ambassador for the last 2 years. And watching this happen was quite fun. So we started, I think it was last PromCon. I met Augustin here, and we were hanging out talking about this a little bit, like, hey, this is something we should go do. I reached out to the CNCF itself just to double check whether incubation was more interesting or whatever, but Sandbox is the first tier in this process. And in March, they got together and submitted the application. Now, it took a while for them to churn through the big pile of applications and start looking at it, but they started in the second week of August, and I went on vacation. And right before I went, I used the CNCF channels I have with the ambassadors to ask them to spread the word about this, because when you vote, you have to be a voting member to get it in, but you can show your support. So we did a call through the Perses social channels, we did a call through mine, we did a call through all the CNC ambassadors I could find. This thing skyrocketed, and a few days later, they were like, yep, you're in. So that is really amazing that you all jumped up and did that, and that's about the fastest thing I've ever seen. So right now, you're seeing a lot of change within the project where they're, for example, migrated into a Slack channel. They migrated stuff over to the, or gonna have to migrate their stuff into the CNCF framework with GitHub. So pay attention, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be going on. Well, last year there was a completely recorded session here on this stage by Augustin and his colleague. They talked about the dashboard as a code, they talked about the standard and the dashboard itself, so I didn't want to revisit that exact same thing this year. I kind of wanted to look forward, like how far it's come. So when I saw all this stuff about a year and a half ago, I sat down and thought, this is really nice. I want to get people started with it, right? So I put together a workshop from zero to getting it installed on your machine and using it. And one of the things that was really, really amazing at that time was that they didn't have a lot of visualization done yet, so the dashboard would drag, drop, and fill in the boxes and stuff. It was more working in the JSON. And so this API became really interesting. And this is also the thing you're going to be leaning on a lot when you're doing your dashboard as a code or your GitOps or your CI/CD. And it's really straightforward. It's, you know, as you see here, a bunch of examples of things you can do and how it works. You have the ability to get stuff. You can, you know, basically it's CRUD operations. And you already see when you get to the part where you start applying stuff and when you start reading out stuff, describing it, now you're seeing, hey, I can start pushing dashboards out into my Kubernetes landscape along with all my applications. And when I know what I want to monitor and I know what the service discovery is to find the right data source, this could get really interesting really fast. You probably want to have a chat with Augustin how they're doing that. It's pretty neat. And then I thought, what's the best way to give you a look at the various UI improvements and how you can create some pretty amazing stuff already. I think it's really clean, it's really beautiful. The best way to do it, though, is to kind of chop it up and make it a little bit bigger here. So when you get in there and you want to make your first stat chart, everything is really aligned to Prometheus. So you see here you have the ability to, you know, make some descriptions and things like that and select what kind of a chart you want to make, a panel. And it has a preview thing in there, and you know, you see the PromQL queries, right? Straight up. So everybody knows how to do that, even the most complex stuff like the anomaly things he was just doing. So all this stuff is applicable. It is still a rather simple, what do you call it, like command line completion on the PromQL stuff, but it does have it, which is really nice. You know, it can look at the data source and see what's coming in. You look on the right there, you have the ability to, on the bottom you have 3 tabs. You have query settings, and you can actually view the JSON, cut and paste it out, and put it somewhere else. But the settings thing there, you see there's quite a few things you can start tweaking in this. And I provided there, right above that, the 3 different boxes. You can see all the different things you can use as a qualification. As you're doing this, you're seeing it update right above it in the preview. So you can tweak and do whatever you want before you deploy this stuff. And you end up in the top right with the little box up there on your dashboard. We have gauge charts. These are the same idea. What's a little different here is you have the ability to change the threshold. So you start out with some orange, green, yellow, weird looking stuff. They actually let you pick whatever color you want, a whole color palette. You can use absolute or you can use percentages. You'll see an example with percentages on the next one. You have time series charts where you do multiple queries. You can add thresholds to this stuff. One of the limitations currently is the thresholds you can't label. So you end up with threshold 1, threshold 2, threshold 3, but that's like a moment in time right now. I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna fix that soon. You have documentation panels because when you're setting up your stuff, it'd be a really good idea when people land on their service page that they're monitoring and having to react to that you have access to the documentation, don't we think, right? Kind of an important thing. It's really funny because I don't know how many IDEs you've worked with and stuff. They always have this side panel where they show you the live view of what you're doing. This is basically doing the exact same thing, and I think this thing's more responsive than most of my IDEs. It's pretty crazy. Multi-gauge. Didn't expect this, to be really honest, when I started putting together the workshop, but the ability to do a little bit more complex queries and get a lot of information up on your dashboard in a multi-gauge panel. So really nice. Again, you can modify the thresholds, the colors, the amount of thresholds, whatever you want to do with this. Put it in absolute values or percentages. And then a couple things they've added in the recent times that are not part of the workshop right now, but you can do a table. For example, here we're taking a look at all my systems that are up, keeping a list running of what's going on when you land there. You see that you also have like ability to do density displays and things like that. A bar chart. All seems really fundamental stuff, but I mean, you got to build the foundations, right, before you can make really, really beautiful stuff. Here you see a bar chart with another, query and a couple of things you can do with the settings and figure out how you want to tweak it and put what colors you want in there. The latest addition has been tracing. That seemed like the obvious next step. We had a partner, one of the other companies that is supporting Perses in the wild is Red Hat. The OpenShift team integrated all this stuff into their OpenShift container platform. They asked me to show you a couple examples in a minute, and that's going to be part of one of their operators. It's releasing 0.40 in, it should already be released. I was unable to verify it, but it should be out already. You see that they contributed back the scatter charts, the trace tables, and the tracing Gantt charts. And the only limitations on this right now is that it is querying only the tempo trace queries. So, and here's an example of what it looks like embedded inside the OpenShift container platform. You have the scatter charts, the various aspects of what they decided to put together. And you can really see that this is Perses, Perses stuff. It's not hard to understand that this is really clean front-end stuff. Here you see the waterfall, and you can drill down and get details on the right side on various traces and that data. And then I thought it'd be kind of fun to show what we've done with it inside of Chronosphere's platform. I have to admit up front, when they initially started doing this project, Chronosphere, Amadeus, were really big in this together and committing a whole bunch of code and doing a lot of stuff. And at a certain point in time, Chronosphere decided to step aside there a little bit and do a little bit less focus on that and more on the product. They pulled their engineers over to that. I refused to listen, personally. I was like, you can't really tell me what I'm going to do at 5 o'clock, so that's what I was doing at 5 o'clock. But the stuff here, you can see it in a little bit more complex environment, and you can definitely see the various panels and stuff inside here. This is a service page where you would land as a service owner. Something's going wrong. You see some red stuff at the top. It's a little bit small, but you get the idea. You can see various thresholds and things that are going on, and links to documentation on the right side and all that kind of stuff. Another example is looking at traces like the Explorer. It has a little bit different feel because our framework has a little bit different scheme, but it's the same idea. You have the ability to take this for a spin. I mentioned a workshop. I'll get to that later. In that workshop, I show you how to do it from source, so to actually build the project from scratch and run it on your laptop automatically. You can also do it with a container image that they provide. They release one every time. And they also host that container image on an instance called demo.perses.dev. Anybody can go there, log in. They currently have, as you can see, I believe, Git and GitHub and Google. And what's really interesting about that, I think, is that they worked it out also so that I showed you the command line API. You can also log into this with the API with your, for example, Google credentials, which it gives you a code. You go to a web page, you fill it in, and then you're, from the command line, able to push your dashboards into a project inside here. So you see there on the, your guys' left over here, you see the various projects in there, because people have been playing. One warning with this, it can be taken down at any time because a new release will come or whatever they're going to do. I'm pretty much sure that's how it happens. I tried to integrate it into my workshop, but I put a warning next to it from, hey, you can't expect this to be here forever. Anything you do in the workshop or building out and trying this out is going to be able to stop and pick it back up later, but not with this. So go give it a try. It's really fun. You'll also find, until they decide to reset it, you notice that my workshop stuff's in there, so that's a complete thing. Now, one thing I think you should do in open source, how many people here have been on or on this list? I don't know if you're willing to stand up. It'd be really nice if you did, but I know Augustine's here. I know Julian's here. I also saw, who else did I see running around here? Nicholas is also here. He's got a talk. So if you see these guys, buy them a beer. That's about the only rewards you get for this stuff, right? Augustin's right over here too. He's pretty much leading it now. While you do see a lot of Chronosphere, I think it's well worth, the historical value of everybody that contributed. People come and go. You do what you do, and but Amadeus is really the big pull right now. They're doing a lot of work on this. Red Hat's doing quite a bit of stuff around the tracing. Not all these people are super active right now, but I thought it was really a nice idea to stop and take a look and see who you know in this list, because there's quite a few people from Prometheus fame that have taken the time to put some stuff in here. And I expect Julius will be back again soon to help out with some stuff, right? All right, so I wanted to put this up so you have a chance to see a place to get started where it's really easy. This takes you from nothing to installing it either by source or using the online cloud sandbox, what they provide, or using the container platform. You can do it in Podman from the open source Red Hat fame, or you can use Docker. It doesn't matter to me at all. It walks you through this stuff from taking a dashboard from nothing to a complete, beautiful, as much as you can get done here. And I'll be sure to add a bar chart and a table, which are not in there yet. When the tracing stuff gets a little bit farther along, I'll probably drop some of that in there too. Contributions to this are just as welcome as contributions to documentation at Perses or anything like that, right? So the last thing I wanted to share was it's a little bit more detailed than what they did in the lightning talk and stuff, but you see you have the repository itself. You also have the documentation up there. You have the website itself, some of the social media links. The chat thing has just moved over to the CNCF Sandbox, or CNCF Slack. You'll find them on Perses Dev. The roadmap is also listed there. I didn't go into great detail to that now because it's pretty fluid as far as I can understand. You kind of got to pay attention in the dev channel. They're quite active on that stuff. I got the workshop listed. There's also a Prometheus workshop listed where you can start your own Prometheus instance locally and then use that to query. That's basically the storage for what you're visualizing. If you want to follow along with the onboarding into the CNCF Sandbox, that's kind of an interesting process, I think. It lists out all the stuff that they're going to need to do to also get to the next level for incubation. And Austin is super busy with that right now with the team. And I put a link at the bottom there for the PromCon 23 talk. That was Austin and his colleague. I can't remember his name, but they did a whole thing on the base layer of what's in Perses. And it's come a long ways when you see the little demo they gave versus what you're going to be able to do with it now. So I think it's time you take a look and see what you can make out of this. And get ready to do your own contributions, because there's a lot of stuff to be done, and they'd love to have the help. I have one last QR code for you here. If you scan this, we're giving away from our booth free Uber Eats cards. So all you got to do is scan this, and you get one sent to you. It's not. It says it's a win-a card, but everybody's a winner. So go get them. And I think I'm ready for questions if you.
Thank you for the talk. I saw that there's a CLI tool as well.
Yes.
How do you pronounce its name?
How do I pronounce its name?
Yeah.
Per CLI is what I call it, but do you have any other way you call it, Austin?
Well, as a French, I'm saying Percli with a big.
Really? I can't repeat that. I don't speak French.
Well, let's stick with cuddling the cubes or something.
Yeah, that sounded like a dirty word. That's a fun
more questions. But that was fun.
So I have a question if you don't. I have a question for Julius. When are you going to put the prom lands into Perses?
You're free to add that, but I have other plans at the moment.
Oh, I thought it was your hobby project. So I was going to say, come on over and add it to ours.
It will be done in 2 months.
There you go. It's on the roadmap, see?
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, we'll check in with you, Augustine, in 2 months. Questions? I was about to end it.
Can it just speak Prometheus and traces at the moment, or can it speak to other?
So the question, I think what you mean is, can you use just traces to visualize?
No, can it speak SQL, or can it
no.
speak to Graphite, or?
No, it cannot. No, that you see in the drop-down, there's only one thing, and right now it's the Grafana query language. Yep.
Thanks.
Tempo. But can't wait for you to contribute those. You see a theme here?
So if you don't know what to do after 5 p.m.
Yeah, you can go home and do it too.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to trying the demo.